DC. So this conversation is primarily going to be us talking with the Congresswoman about the stuff we've been working on with her in DC, updates on big issues like tax reform, permitting reform, and I know not everybody is here for that, so we have about a 6:30, we have about an hour, yeah, 6:30 hard deadline, but we will wrap up, open up for a few questions. We're not going to screen anybody, we're not going to cut off opposition, because this is our Republic in action. I think this is an important room to be in the 250th year of our country's creation. Mm-hmm. Yes. Everyone knew what she did. Our country was formed by people having differing opinions, by people being in a room together where I think the Constitutional Convention, right, was probably a very contentious discussion. I don't think this needs to be. We appreciate everyone, no matter what side of the aisle you may fall on, what your beliefs are, because having these conversations is important to the continuation of our country. And so thank you so much for being here. I will just say we want this to remain respectful. We were out talking to many protesters, having great conversations. They're all being respectful. So please know, I'm not going to accuse anybody, but please know outbursts or yelling, right? The Congresswoman is great enough to be here, being willing to take conversation questions and have that conversation. But right now, I will turn things over to Will, and we will get started on. I will first turn things over to Celeste.
I'm just going to make a quick announcement, because I'm sure we planned this event a while ago and didn't expect there to be as much demand for a town hall right now as there is. And so I'm sure a lot of you are here just because you want a town hall. This is AFP's event, not mine, but I'm doing a town hall on Saturday at noon. So if you've got questions that you want answered that we're not addressing here, it'll be a teletown hall, so you can call it. It's on all my social media. So, like, I'm happy to answer questions. I want to be talking to people. I'm welcoming the dialogue. But this is not my event. So if you'll be respectful of AFP and what they're doing here, you'll still get a chance to have me answer questions about whatever else is on your mind if we don't get to it today. So go to my social media, call into the town hall. This may not be the event where all of your questions get answered, but we are going to try to get to a lot of them. Sorry.
Nope, that's
now
right.
I'm taking over your event, but I want to know that right up front.
All right. So Will Berger, as I said, works on our federal government affairs team, is working with members of Congress all the time back in D.C. While we're here in Utah. So this conversation is primarily what's happening at the federal level, and so I'm going to kick it over to Will to get started on some dialogue right now.
Appreciate it. Will Berger, I have had the pleasure of knowing the Congresswoman for a couple of years now, even before she was a member of Congress. She sits on a couple very important committees. One is the House Appropriations Committee. The other is the House Natural Resources Committee, and she has recently been elected as the House Chair of the Western Caucus, which is a wonderful big deal, and to have that representation in your own state of Utah is very lucky for you guys. So I want to start this off because I am a former staffer of a member on appropriations, so the House Appropriations Committee is near and dear to my heart. Obviously, we have a funding deadline coming up, January 30th, and if the House recently passed the last of the funding packages, that has gone over to the Senate, and the Senate is now dealing with that, and the House is obviously not in session because you are here. Walk us through that process and where things sit, and what are some of the sticking points there?
Yeah, so I'm glad that's where we're starting, because I think the answer to this question is the answer to a lot of the questions people have right now. I've been out meeting with people, we're out of session, I'm all around Utah right now, and I keep getting asked, like, what is Congress doing? What is Congress doing to assert its Article 1 authority? What's Congress doing to check the executive branch? And it's hard to overstate the importance of having the appropriations bills passed. And you know this because you work for an appropriator, but you know, there are a few things in the Constitution that Congress is required to do, and appropriating is one of them. So there's that. It's also where we set the policy for the year and what gets funded and what doesn't. And once those bills have passed, then the executive branch agencies, so most of what people think of as the government is executive branch agencies. That gives them their marching orders, basically. These are the things you can do, these are the things you cannot do, this is the direction you're supposed to go. We have not done a great job of passing appropriations bills the last few years. We get some of them passed, we don't get others passed, we end up having continuing resolutions, and when you're not doing that annual funding cycle, then it gets a little sloppy what the instructions are to those executive branch agencies. Sometimes it's, I mean, technically in a continuing resolution, the instructions are continue doing what you're doing at the same levels. But when it's been too long since those instructions came out, things tend to get a little sloppy. So the fact that we have all 12 appropriations bills through the House is a really big deal that's kind of flying under the radar right now. And until this week, it looked really promising that they were all going to get through the Senate too, and we would have all 12 of them signed into law. In case you have not watched the news at all in the last week, there's no threat in the Senate that they will not pass. And I hope it doesn't come to that, because whatever other answers we have to get to, funding the government and setting that policy is really important for us as a country. It's really, really important for the legislative branch in keeping that balance between the three branches. And so everybody talks about regular order. They want us to get back to regular order. And a lot of people who talk about it don't totally know what it means, but the bulk of it is this. It is passing appropriations bills that went through committee and have actually gone across the floor. These bills that we're talking about right now, we have 12 individual bills, which we have not had for a long time. The last time we passed all 12 was in 2018. But it's not just that we passed them. We had the committee hearings, we did the markups during the summer. If you follow my social media, you know I was posting like the hours that we spent in markups. These are the same bills. And they were negotiated by subcommittee chairs. And that's really critical because a lot of times in the last few years when we have gotten appropriations bills done, the negotiations have kind of broken down in the four corners, meaning the Speaker of the House, the ranking member in the House, and then the two leaders in the Senate go into a room, they hammer it out, they come back with a product, and it's an up or down vote for everybody else.
The omnibus.
Yeah, the omnibus. These are not those bills. These were negotiated by the subcommittee chairs, the people who go through the budget line by line and know what's in there. The people who understand the nuance of each of the 12 individual bills worked across the Capitol with the Senate and across the aisle with their counterparts to work out these bills. And so I hope we get there. I hope the Senate finds a solution that can pass, because it would be really important for the country to have all 12 of the bills pass through almost regular order this year. And I think if we can do that, we'll just keep getting closer and closer to regular order, which is what people want and also our job and what we should be doing. That was a really long answer.
No, it's a great answer. I mean, it's really important to understand the process, because I think sometimes the process is what leads to a better product. If you have an actual good process, which we have not for many years, and what I've seen is individual members have less and less buy-in into the final product because they don't get to go through that, even members on the appropriations committee.
No, it's true, and here's the evidence. If you're looking for evidence of that, we've sort of learned some bad habits as a conference, in that so many times it's been a four corners agreement, and then we get an up or down vote. And so even, you know, I'm a Republican, Republicans are in the majority right now. Even on our own team, we've gotten in the habit of, when we get told this is the product and you're going to vote yes or no, then we offer a bunch of poison pill amendments, and then we go out and tell people we tried to improve it. And that happened this year, and it was kind of silly that happened this year, except that that's the habit we're in, because we've lost, the speaker always says the muscle memory, and now I'm starting to say it just right here. So we've lost the muscle memory of doing this through regular order and having some buy-in in the conference. And getting it done this year, doing it again next year, will start to create that muscle memory. But also, something that I think everybody here will intuitively get is that the more often we have things like that, the more we're operating in a low trust environment. And I think just across the country right now, everybody feels like we're operating in a low trust environment. And in a low trust environment, you're always looking for the catch. You're always looking behind, you know, what people are saying to figure out how they're trying to actually, you know, trick you or pull the wool over your eyes. And the more times we go through the process and we have the markups and you can watch the hearings and you can read the bill and you can talk to your member of Congress who actually got a chance to offer amendments, then the more we can return to a higher level of trust that what we're hearing is real and that we can believe what we're seeing on the news. And we need that as a country. We need that to be able to operate in a country where we have the right to hold our government accountable, but you can't hold your government accountable if you're not confident you know what they're doing.
Yeah. One thing, just a side note, AFP has been really invested in is trying to find a way to basically prevent government shutdowns in general. We don't think that they are good for this country. It's not fiscally responsible. It's not good for federal workers. It's not good for anybody. It's usually used as a bargaining tool, bargaining chip. And so, how are we going to avoid this shutdown?
Well, one thing that we've already done, 6 of the 12 appropriations bills are signed into law. So in October, we had a complete government shutdown. There were no appropriations bills that had been passed. Here we are in January, 6 of the 12 have passed through both houses. And the 6 that are left obviously are the bargaining chip right now. But I'm confident that we'll get them done. We may have to make some changes to one of them, but the reason that I don't think we're going into another shutdown is that we're already halfway funded. I think we'll get most of the rest of it there. Even if we don't get absolutely everything done, we'll be almost all of the way there, which is very different than where we were in October.
I want to ask you in a second about your work on the Natural Resources Committee, but first, when you look at your role on the House Appropriations Committee, how do you see your role there moving forward? What are some of your goals, whether it's, because I remember as a former appropriations staffer, you can do a lot of good policy work through the appropriations process. What are your goals there?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm still amazed that I got onto the Appropriations Committee in my first full term in Congress, and I'm trying not to punch above my weight, so to speak. I mean, we do punch above our weight in Utah, but I'm trying not to overplay my hand. But I got on committees that really matter to Utah. So the subcommittees, I'm on the Legislative Branch Subcommittee, that one nobody outside of the Beltway cares about, but I'm on the Interior Appropriations Subcommittee, which has jurisdiction over almost all of the natural resources issues. And those are big issues in Utah. I'm also on the Energy and Water Subcommittee, which has jurisdiction over the rest of the natural resources issues. And all of that is really important here in the state. We're in an era where we're talking about energy dominance and producing more energy, and a lot of the things that stand in the way of that, and this is going to cross over with the Natural Resources Committee too, but we have a lot of our own policies that we need to go back and look at and update and make sure they're working for the American people. And so being on energy and water and natural resources, at the same time I'm on the authorizing committee for that, puts me in a good position to help drive a lot of those conversations. And then, you mentioned the Western Caucus. That's another place to help line up some of the support behind the good ideas, so that a lot of people in Congress have great ideas, and then they don't know how to get people to support their great ideas, and it takes a lot of work. We are distracted all the time. It's like scrolling through social media in real life every day. There's just, you talk to somebody for 15 minutes about one thing, especially during appropriations season. Everybody who has an appropriations request comes to Washington, D.C., and they want to meet with us. And so every 15 minutes, we're talking to a different set of people about a different set of problems and trying to figure out where that fits into this larger framework. And so if you don't have the organization and the skills to go talk to your colleagues and explain why these things are important and sort of line up some support behind them, good ideas fall into the ditch and everybody moves on. And so having a good idea is only part of the problem. Getting people to support the idea and then shepherding it all the way through is just as important.
No, that's incredibly encouraging to hear. I think we need to look at the appropriations process more as a way to wed good policy with process, with funding, and I think all those things coming together, along with your authorizing work, I think is really important for this state and these communities. So I want to pivot real quick to talk about, last summer, Congress passed at the time known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, that it's also can be known as the Working Family Tax Cut. A lot of stuff in there, a lot of feelings about that. People were, all over the map on that. I'm not as interested in talking about that as I am about what's actually in there.
Yeah.
And some of the provisions that I know you had worked very hard to get included in there. Would love for you to share a little bit about what those provisions are. I'm thinking NEPA, onshore lease sales, federal land use, things like that.
Yeah, so, man, it seems like that was already a really long time ago. It was
I know.
like 6 months ago. But the One Big Beautiful Bill, everybody keyed in on kind of two things. Everybody wanted to talk about Medicaid and Social Security, and a lot of the other stuff that's in there didn't get as much play as it probably should have. And the reason I say that is because I talk to people all the time now. We're like, Congress should do this. And the thing they're talking about is something that was in the One Big Beautiful Bill. So yeah, there's mandatory leasing, which existed before the last administration, so we're back to that. It's not anything new, but it's codified now. And having it codified is important as opposed to having it be an executive branch policy. And energy production, some reforms of NEPA. NEPA was supposed to make sure that we're looking at alternatives before we make environmental decisions, so we make better decisions. It's turned into, the gum that glues up the works a lot of times. We can make good environmental decisions in less time and for less money than we're doing it now. That's one of those efficiency things that we're looking at.
And both sides have
Yeah.
really hit the wall on NEPA.
Thank you for saying that, because that is totally true. I'm also the co-chair of the Build America Caucus, which is bipartisan. It was started by Democrats. They invited me